Yes, slightly. So I think if you have a planned section, it's for a reason usually. So whether it's previous birth complications or whatever it might be, there probably are reasons for it. And whatever those reasons are kind of dictates how that birth will look and who'll be in the room and that kind of thing. The funny thing with me was the date was set early on at 37 weeks, bang on. But then as I got further into the pregnancy and got even more knowledge, I found out that actually, up to 38 weeks is safe. So I pushed him. And as we got through the pregnancy, I eventually did say, it's a bank holiday, so should we just get the baby out before that bank holiday? Because you'll be off, won't you? And that kind of thing. And because I was pushing him, but then he was like, oh no, I'll be off and I don't want to not be around and that kind of thing if there are any complications. So I couldn't get it as pushed as far as I wanted to because I wanted it at 38 weeks bang on, but I got 37 and 6.
So here's a question. Why would you want to push it?
Because as I got through the pregnancy and the baby was growing at a rate that they were happy with and the placenta was functioning as it should be, and I mean we're getting very far into the pregnancy. We're probably at week 33 here,
right,
where I'm negotiating with him,
okay,
saying, can we push it a bit further? And he's like, yeah, we can. Everything is going okay, but you need to be prepared. We might need to pull it back as well. We might need to get her out sooner, but yeah, let's go for this date. And so the date did. So I had a date in my diary that got scrubbed out, and then another date 6 days later, and that was the date she was born, 25th of August, 2021. And a couple of weeks before, he said, I really would like you to meet some of the people that will be in the room, because with Lucy's diagnosis, like you say, they needed to plan what eventualities could be. So obviously you need an anaesthetist because I need drugs to be able to have a C-section and all the rest of it. And you need a paediatrician in the room, and you need certain sort of specialist nurses and that kind of thing. So he said, rather than all these people being in the room and you not understanding who they are or what they are, knowing what I know about you now, Laura, I think you'd probably like to meet some of them and have a discussion around what will happen on the day. Actually, I wish that hadn't happened, because they weren't like him. They weren't very good at calming me down. Right. They did the opposite and made me really fearful and anxious, right, because they were talking about all of the things that could go wrong when Lucy comes out of my tummy, and all of this kind of negative scaremongering almost. But that's because they're trained to give us the worst case scenarios and work back from there. And I understand that, but I didn't necessarily need all of that. At that point in my pregnancy, when I was getting very close to giving birth, it was very scary. I was already frightened. And then they were saying, she might not be able to breathe. We'll need to take her away. You won't get to hold her. And they basically set me up for all of the worst case scenarios. And then I spent the last few weeks of the pregnancy just, again, a bit like the beginning of the pregnancy, going through the diagnosis, detaching myself from the baby inside me and saying, this baby doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the doctors, because that, for me in my head, that was the only way I could deal with what might happen, because I think your natural instinct, obviously, is to want to grab hold of your baby and hold your baby, and that whole, they've done... all I've ever seen all my life is all this stuff about how important skin to skin at birth is and all this kind of stuff. So Absolutely. To go against all of that was so hard in my head that the only way I could do that was to detach myself again and say, this is what it's going to be like, and I'm just going to deal with it that way. On the
25th of August 2021, you turn up at the hospital, to the ward.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like for you?
So you go into a room with other people, other mothers that are going to have planned sections. So it's mostly people with their partners. And I think there was 2 others in the room. There was probably 6 beds, but there was only 3 of us in the room. Me being me and my consultant being my consultant, we made sure I was first on the list.
Right.
Because I was really worried about getting delayed or pushed back and what that would do to me. I was very anxious. And I think because we had this complication, he was able to put me first because other people had planned sections, but not for such serious reasons, I guess.
Right.
So that meant that, and he said the only thing that will stop you going in first is if another emergency happens before you. If I have an emergency section to do, you'll just have to wait for me, but you will be my next section as soon as I'm available. So we go into this room, and this consultant comes to the end of the bed and says, "Good morning, Miss Sharpe. Good morning, Mr. Preston. I'll be doing your section today." And John tells this story better than me, but basically I just turned. I think I was talking to John when she stood at the end of the bed, and I just turned and went, "No, you won't." And she went, "Yes, I will."